Here I'm going to show you how to remove all special or goofy or weird characters from a cell in Excel using a single formula. And for this tutorial, I'm going to start out simple, showing you how to identify and replace a single character, and then build up to a monster formula down here that is going to allow us to take a cell like this right here and change it into something that's lovely and easy to read and has no more goofy, weird, or special characters in it. And at the end, I will walk through this and explain exactly how it works with my formula deconstruction method. And if you've got any thoughts on how to make this formula better, or just your own version of it, I would love to see it, and I encourage you to post it in the comments for this video so that everybody can see it and benefit from it. As you know, there's only about 1,000,000 different ways to do everything in Excel. Before we start, check the video description and click the link to Teach Excel so you can download the files for the tutorial and follow along. And make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials. All right, now before I get into the examples over here, I have one note about the clean function. It is a great little function that's going to get rid of many of the problematic non-printable characters. It's a simple function equals clean. We are not going to be talking about it in this tutorial. It's going to be more advanced here, but I have a link in the downloadable file to a tutorial I did for that function, and it's also in the description of this video. So let us move on and go to identifying special, goofy, weird, or non-printable characters and removing them. Here I have a classic example of a hidden space. And the concept that you need to understand in order to be able to use this tutorial and use these features in Excel is that these goofy characters, like this fake little space over here, it's not actually fake, it's just kind of weird. It's represented by a code number. And this is the code number for the non-breaking space character, 160. And in all of our formulas, where we are going to rip those characters out, we must reference the code numbers. So let me first show you how to get the code number over here. It's very simple. We are first going to use the left function to get the goofy character from this cell. In this case, it's the first character, so I can hit enter. And it looks like there's nothing there, but I promise you there is. And then what we want to do is we want to surround it with the code function. And the code function, let's see what they say for it, returns a numeric code for the first character in a text string in the character set used by your computer. Okay, that's not terrifically helpful. It's going to give us the code number that we can use to reference this goofy character. And the code number for this space is 160. Now that you have your code number, we can rip it out of this cell and clean it out so that we can use all of our formulas and functions on it. And to do that, we just use a basic substitute function. So let's go substitute. Here is the text I'd like to substitute. What do I want to remove? Well, I need to use this code number, but instead of using it in the code function, I use kind of the reverse function for it, which is the char function. And the char function allows me to pop this number in here and get the goofy character that I'd like to refer to. So I type 160. And what do I want to replace the goofy character with? Well, let's replace it at first with a dash, just so we can see that it was replaced. I will close up the substitute function, and we can see that now instead of a space in front of the text, we have a dash. But we want to kill it entirely, so let's just remove the dash and leave nothing in between the quotation marks. Hit enter, and there we go. That premise, identifying the code number using the code function, and then ripping it out and replacing it with nothing, is going to be the basis for this monster down here. Now let's practice it with a goofy character here. We have the little circle R at the end of this my slogan. We're going to do the exact same thing. Let's do it step by step. This time we want to use the right function to rip it out. So here, rip it out, right. Surround it with the code tags, or just the code function. Code tags are for the forum. Code function 174. So I make my substitute with char 174. Now I use text extraction functions here left and right, but you don't have to do that. The whole goal is just to get the code number. So if you double click the cell, you have your goofy character in there. Just copy the goofy character wherever it is. Go to another cell, paste it in there, and you can use code to refer to it like that. So you can very easily see that it is 174. And now what I want to do is to show you the entire list of goofy, special, weird characters and even normal characters that we can refer to. So go to the character list worksheet. And what I've done here is I have a character number in the left and the character that it represents in the right. And this is a basic number, hard-coded 1 to 255. And this is the char function. Let's see what Excel says for that. Returns the character specified by the code number from the character set for your computer. Okay, that one's actually not too bad. And you can see a lot of these are really not very helpful. And the clean function, I believe, actually goes up to character 32 and will remove everything from 1 to 32. And basically from 33 down to approximately 126, we have the normal characters that we would expect to see. And after about, 127 on, it gets to characters that we may or may not want. So we can use the clean function to rip out the first part and the big formula at the end to rip out this last part. Now let's go with the find and replace trick before we get to the big formula, because this is really helpful. You don't always need to use formulas to replace these goofy characters. That can be terrifically annoying, especially if your data isn't just in a single imported column. So to do that, you just open up the Find and Replace window. It is Control H, although to be honest with you, I never remember that. I always just hit Control F, which takes you here, and then go to the Replace tab. Then in the Find What window, I have a little note here. It is Alt plus the character number. So the character number, let's say 160 or 174, but you have to do it using the numeric keypad. Now I do not have a numeric keypad. I have a smaller laptop keyboard. So how do you type in the goofy character here so that you can replace it with something down here? Well, that is actually very, very easy. You just go over here, grab your goofy character, copy it, and then go to Control H, find what, paste that guy right in there, replace with, let's leave it at blank, so I'm going to hit backspace and delete just to make sure there's nothing in there. And let's hit replace once. And the R is gone for my slogan. Perfect. Now you can also hit replace all to do it for the entire worksheet, and that is great when you have a worksheet of raw data and you want to make sure that certain characters just aren't in there. But now let us move on to the big boy. All goofy characters at once. And I have two formulas here. One that is geared towards Excel 365. We've got text join and sequence in there. And one that should work for many versions that are pre-365, where we're going to use concat and then row and indirect. Now, before I go through deconstructing these formulas, this is what we've got over here. 9 characters of goofy, or special, or weird, or just horrible characters. And we want to remove the beginning non-printable characters, but then everything from 127 onwards. So all of the code characters from 127 onwards. Now to remove the first set of characters, I cheated a little bit. I used the clean function. It made life very easy, so I wrapped it in that. But for the other characters, I combined sort of an interesting set of mid and code and if statements and sequence for the 365 version, and made it a very lovely little thing. Let's open up the pre-Excel 365 formula and let's go through that. So I'm going to rip this guy out, take him down here, and let's start it up. And this will be formula deconstruction. You will be familiar with this if you've watched some of my other tutorials. And what we're going to do is basically explode this guy. And do note with pre-Excel 365, you are going to have to input this with Control, Shift, Enter. It is an array formula. However, in new versions of Excel, you don't have to do that anymore. So let's talk about what we have. I already mentioned the clean. That's going to remove the little goofy guy at the very end. Well, it will remove all of the non-printable characters, but in this case, it's just the goofy guy at the end. So let's go down here, put it in there. You see the little goofy guy at the end? That was removed by clean at the beginning. But now, this is where it starts to get interesting. So let us rip out everything within concat. And we're going to start from there. And let's go down here. and I will pull this guy up 1. And now let us go from left to right to build out this guy. So let's get the code numbers. Now let's go inside of this and get everything that the code numbers represent. Now let us pop these over 1, and actually let us take greater than or equal to 127 right here. Alright, so now let's talk about what we have. This right here is every single character from this cell over here, and it is exploded out like this. Now, if you're in pre-Excel 365, it's not going to explode out like this when you explain it, so don't worry about that. This is just to explain how it all works. So this is every single character, okay? And every single character is exploded out using this right here. This is not as complex as it looks. This right here is a trick to get a list of numbers that represents how many characters are in a cell. So if I select it and I hit F9 right now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In the Excel 365 version of this, we use the sequence function to create this. So this is just a trick to get that to work. Then we just have the mid function, which is going to reference the cell with all the characters. And we have the array in the middle that says, what number character do you want to start with? Well, I want to start with the first character, then the second, then the third, fourth, fifth, and so on. And the last argument, how many characters do you want to get? Well, each time I only want to get 1 character. So this is what you use to explode a cell into its individual parts. And what it will look like is actually an array within the cell. So that's what it looks like. It's the same as typing that out. Now, for the next thing, well, we need to get this into its code number equivalent so that we can perform an if statement check on it, because I don't want to check each one individually. So what we do is we take this and we wrap it in the code function. So this is all the same, and then we just put the code function around it to get the number that refers to that special character, or just that character at all. So 97 is for A, 174 for this one, 160 for the evil space, 116 for T, and so on. Now that we have these numbers, it's very easy to perform our if statement check. So we go right here. We have this from the previous one, and then we just make a logical check. Is it greater than or equal to 127? That gets us our list of false and true values. In this case, if it is true, then we would like to remove it. So that takes us to the next step, where we encase it within an if statement. So this is our check, okay? Then this is what we want to happen. If it is greater than or equal to 27, we want it to output nothing. Then all that we do down here is we take just what I just went over, that gets all of those codes, these numbers right over here, and we put them within the char function to turn them back into their characters. So this right here, if I hit F9, it evaluates to all of the numbers right here that are listed right here. Now I put them back inside of the char function to spit out all of the characters. And then the if statement will simply match up all of the true and false checks over here with this over here. And that's where the magic happens. That's how we decide which characters will remain and which will be removed. Now that last part especially can seem a bit crazy, so I highly recommend that you just play around with these guys. And it may not work in all versions of Excel. Excel is changing very quickly and allowing us to do really cool things like this that would have been so much more difficult in years prior. So if this feature does not work in your particular version of Excel, please let me know. Put it in the comments to the video so that someone else can know. I'm currently in Excel 365. And the very last thing now is to get all of this from an array. So from this right here into a single simple string. And to do that, we can use the concat function. So the concat function will take all of this and it will turn it into a single simple string like this. And at the end, just use the clean function, wrap everything with the clean function, and it's going to rip out the non-printable characters. So the little guy at the end of this string. Now, I hope that you are able to understand this formula, but if not, do not worry, because all you have to do to get it to work for you is to point all these cell references here to the cell where you would like to have the characters removed. And for the most part, this, removing the non-printable characters and everything greater than or equal to 127, is going to do wonders for your data set. But if you want to make sure that you don't remove characters that you really care about, then go through this list and just check the numbers for any characters you may need. But note that a lot of these characters down here cause more problems than they are worth, especially when you want to use something in a VLOOKUP. And that's why over here everything from 127 up is removed by default. But now you've got a great base formula to go by over here. This one should work for pre-Excel 365 versions. Control-Shift-Enter to input it, don't forget that. And this one over here, the only difference is that I used text join instead of concat. And here you can choose the delimiter that you'd like, and if you'd like to ignore empty cells. But all of this right here in the middle is the same except the sequence. So here we don't have to use row and indirect. We use sequence and then we count the number of characters in the cell, and that will give us, in this case, 1 to 9. So that right there, the little sequence guy, is the replacement for this right here, which looks a little bit more gnarly. And that's all there is to it. Don't forget to download this file so that you can play around with these formulas and get them working for your data set. I hope you liked the tutorial. If it was helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials.